You're a good person. You're sincere. You put in the effort. You try hard. But why do you constantly feel overlooked, ignored, and disrespected? Why isn't your kindness met with the respect it deserves? Most men in this situation believe the problem is that they're not good enough, not attractive enough. That's the first mistake. The real, fatal mistake lies in the very things you think you're doing right. In this video, we're not talking about dating hacks. We're going back to the 2,000-year-old wisdom of the Stoics, the emperors and philosophers who mastered the art of human value. They teach that being disrespected isn't a failure. It's a symptom of 6 subtle mistakes you might be making unconsciously. And today we will expose those 6 mistakes once and for all. Make sure you watch until the end, because the 6th mistake will reveal a truth about yourself that, once understood, will change how you see relationships forever. So what are these 6 fatal mistakes? These aren't clumsy errors. They are subtle behaviors, habits that society, and even we ourselves, often mistake for kindness and nobility. And that's precisely why they're so dangerous. Fatal mistake number 1. You worship beauty and ignore character. When you meet a woman whose beauty stuns you, a primitive psychological trigger is pulled. You begin to unconsciously lower your other standards. She might be late, she might speak disrespectfully, she might show clear red flags, but your brain makes excuses. It's okay. She's beautiful, so she can be a little different. You're turning yourself into a modern version of Captain Save-A-Ho, a man trying to salvage a sinking ship just because it has a beautiful paint job. The Stoics teach that beauty, wealth, and reputation are all just preferred indifference. They're nice to have, but they don't define a person's core value. Character and virtue are what truly matter. When you place beauty above character, you have already surrendered your power. Fatal mistake number 2. You confuse kindness with people-pleasing. You think that agreeing with everything, never causing conflict, and always keeping the peace is the mark of a good man. It's not. It's the mark of fear. Fear of being disliked. Fear of being abandoned. True kindness, the kindness of a high-value man, always comes from a position of strength. It includes the courage to say no calmly and firmly when one of your values or boundaries is violated. Kindness without boundaries is simply an invitation for disrespect. Fatal mistake number 3. You reward bad behavior. This is a basic principle of psychology that even animal trainers know. A behavior that gets rewarded gets repeated. When she disrespects you, perhaps with a sarcastic remark or the silent treatment, and you respond with flowers, gifts, or begging to make things right, what are you doing? You are training her. You are putting a gold star on that bad behavior and saying, keep doing this, and the reward will be even bigger. You're teaching her, wow, I can treat you poorly, and you'll still pay for dinner. Fatal mistake number 4. You're afraid to set boundaries for fear of loss. This is the heart of all weakness. You know something is wrong. You feel hurt, but you don't speak up because you're afraid that if you draw a line in the sand, she will walk away. And that fear of loss is greater than the pain of being disrespected daily. You are putting yourself in an invisible prison and handing the key to someone else. The truth is, boundaries are not walls to push people away. Boundaries are gates. They teach others how to enter your life respectfully. Fatal mistake number 5. You ignore actions and only believe words. There's a controversial but profound statement. Women never lie. They show the truth. What does this really mean? Their actions always speak the truth, even when their words don't. If she says she respects you, but her actions consistently make you feel small, believe the actions. If she says she's loyal, but her actions are shrouded in secrecy, believe the actions. Words can be painted, but a pattern of behavior cannot be hidden. And the 6th, Most subtle mistake. You try to fix other people. This is the nice guy syndrome. You see potential in her. You think that if you're just loving enough, just patient enough, you can save her from her problems. This is a disguised form of arrogance. The Stoics have a supreme principle. You can only fix one thing in the universe, your own choices and judgments. All efforts to fix others will end in your frustration and their resentment. So, having identified these mistakes, what is the ultimate solution? It's not to become cold or to retaliate. It is to withdraw and build. Withdraw from the futile effort to control her and start building your own internal value. When you shift your focus from, how do I get her to respect me, to how do I become a man worthy of respect regardless of who is or isn't there, a powerful psychological shift occurs. You no longer radiate an energy of neediness, and you will unconsciously trigger a powerful mechanism in others, the fear of loss. They begin to realize that not only can they not control you, but they are at risk of losing an increasingly valuable man. We've exposed the 6 mistakes. You've recognized them. You've resolved to change. You start setting boundaries. You start focusing on building yourself. But then something strange happens. Deep down, you still feel unworthy. There's still an unexplainable anxiety. And more terrifyingly, you notice an alarming pattern. Why do you consistently find yourself attracted to people who tend to disrespect you in the first place? Why do healthy, stable relationships seem boring? This is where we must have the courage to look at a much deeper, more difficult truth. This is where we fulfill the promise from the beginning of the video. Because the 6th mistake, trying to fix others, is just the tip of a colossal iceberg. The answer often doesn't lie in the current relationship. It lies in your very first relationship, the one that shaped your entire perception of love and validation. Your relationship with your mother, or the primary female figure in your childhood. Psychologists call this attachment theory. Simply put, our brains as children are like wet cement. Our first experiences of love will shape it permanently. If your childhood was filled with unconditional love, safety, and consistent validation, you grow up with a core belief: I am worthy of love. But if the love you received was inconsistent, hot and cold, a mix of praise and neglect, you grow up with a different, incredibly dangerous unconscious belief. Love is something that must be earned. You get used to trying, to proving yourself to be loved. And as an adult, your brain, with those imprints, unconsciously seeks out familiar scripts. When you meet someone who treats you well naturally, it feels unfamiliar, even suspicious. But when you meet someone who is distant, who requires you to prove yourself, to conquer them, a part of you thinks, this feeling is familiar. This must be love. You are not attracted to disrespect. You are attracted to a familiar tragedy. You are unconsciously trying to win a war that you lost as a little boy. Looking at comments from similar videos, we see heartbreaking stories, like the user who shared about his schizophrenic mother and her inconsistent love, or the one who admitted to seeking validation from women because his mother wasn't around. They, and possibly you, are not weak. They are simply reenacting an old role. So how do you heal a wound this deep? How do you rewrite a script that's embedded in your subconscious? You cannot change the past. The Stoics would say that is the ultimate madness. But they also teach that you can absolutely change your judgment of it, and in doing so, change its power over your present and future. The solution here involves 2 incredibly powerful actions. First, embrace the past with Amor, Fati, a love of one's fate. This isn't passive resignation. It's an active and powerful acceptance. Look back at your past, not with resentment or regret, but with understanding. Say to yourself, yes, that past happened. Those scars are real, and they, and nothing else, have forged the resilience and desire for change I have today. Love your fate, for it has brought you here to this very moment where you decide to rewrite your story. The second and most important action: become your own parent. The inner child in you, the little boy who once craved validation and safety, is still there, and now as a grown man, you have a sacred duty. The duty to give that very boy the validation, the safety, and the unconditional love he may have lacked. Be the mother you needed who would say, "You are worthy of love not for what you do, but for who you are." When you start to heal yourself from within, you will stop looking for healing from others. You will enter relationships not as a beggar for love, but as a king ready to share his abundance. And so our journey comes to a close. We started with the familiar, painful feeling of powerlessness, the sense that our worth was hanging by a thread, dependent on the attention of another. We went from trying to solve an external mystery to bravely looking inward, realizing we were merely stuck in an invisible negative dance, a play written by past wounds. We exposed the 6 fatal mistakes, behaviors we once thought were good and kind, but were actually the chains binding us to a cycle of disrespect. And more importantly, we found their roots not in present weakness, but in the echoes of childhood. Now you have more than just awareness. You are armed with the tools of philosophers. You've learned to embrace the past with Amor, Fati, and to become your own parent to your inner child. This journey was never just about stopping disrespect. It was a cognitive revolution. A journey from seeking external validation to finding and building a core value from within yourself. When you build your self-esteem on this solid foundation, something magical happens. You no longer radiate the signal of someone who needs to be completed. You radiate the signal of someone who is whole. And that is the kind of energy that not only repels toxic relationships, but attracts healthy, respectful, and sincere connections. I want to end this video with a true story, a historical fact about the power of this philosophy. Think of Epictetus, one of the most influential Stoics. He was not an emperor, not a politician. He was a slave. He was sold, treated like property. It is said that his master, in a fit of rage, twisted his leg. While being tortured, Epictetus just calmly said, "You are going to break it." And when the bone snapped, he simply added, "I told you so." They could chain his body, but no one, not even the most powerful men in Rome, could touch the only thing he truly owned: his mind, his choice, his dignity. From a crippled slave, he became a great teacher, instructing politicians and free men on the nature of true freedom. If a slave in chains could find a freedom and dignity that no one could take away, then why would you, a free person, allow your value to be determined by an unanswered text message? Become the man with clear boundaries, a solid purpose, and a self-respect that is not for sale. That is the truly attractive man. And now, my challenge to you for the next 24 hours is simple. When something outside of your control happens, an annoying email, someone cutting you off in traffic, just pause for 5 seconds. Take a deep breath and ask yourself one single question. Is my reaction within my control? Just do that. You are laying the first stone of your inner citadel. If this video has brought you value, please like and subscribe to Stoic Source. And finally, I want our dialogue to continue. Share in the comments. Of the 6 fatal mistakes we discussed, which one have you been most guilty of in the past? Your honesty is not just an act of courage. It could be the torch that lights the way for another man who is also lost in the dark, thinking he is all alone.